The 446 Pack Cuda should have won. Every magazine said so. Every gearhead at the strip expected it. It didn't win. And the reason why, buried in Pontiac factory documents for decades, changes everything you thought you knew about 1970. This is the Ram Air IV GTO versus the 446 Pack Cuda. Pontiac versus Mopar. The drag strip doesn't lie, and neither do we. 1970, the horsepower wars had reached a kind of insanity. Detroit was shipping cars with engines that the insurance companies and the safety regulators were actively trying to kill. And right in the middle of all of it, two cars arrived that were so fast, so purpose-built, they made the establishment nervous. Pontiac's Ram Air IV GTO and Plymouth's 446 Pack Cuda, both wearing factory war paint, both hiding what they were really capable of. Let's start in Pontiac's corner. The 1970 GTO had been the tiger since 1964. 6 years of dominance, 6 years of being the car every other muscle car measured itself against. But by 1970, the competition had caught up. Pontiac knew it. So, they unleashed the Ram Air IV, a 400 cubic inch engine. Not the biggest block in the war, but arguably the sharpest. Round port cylinder heads, aggressive camshaft, a functional Ram Air induction system that actually worked at speed. Pontiac rated it at 370 horsepower, gross horsepower, the number they put in the brochure. That number was a lie, a deliberate, calculated lie, and Pontiac's engineers knew it. The real output on a dyno, closer to 420 horsepower. Some builds pushed past that. Why the underrating? Insurance. GM had a corporate mandate. No car under 3,500 pounds with more than 1 horsepower per 10 pounds of weight. Pontiac played the game. On paper, on the street, the Ram Air IV answered to nobody. The induction system was the secret weapon. When those hood scoops opened at speed, they fed cold air directly into the carburetor. Dense cold air means more oxygen. More oxygen means more combustion. The Ram Air IV got faster the harder you pushed it. Car and driver called it the best handling, best stopping, best all-around performing car in its class. That was not exaggerating. Factory quarter mile, Pontiac claimed 13.9 seconds at 102 miles per hour. Testers were running 13.7. Some hit 13.5 with a good driver. Now, Mopar's corner. The 1970 Plymouth Cuda was not a reskin. It was a ground-up redesign of the Barracuda on the new E-body platform. Shorter, wider, meaner. Plymouth gave it 3 engine options that year, the 383, the Ford 40, and the 426 Hemi, but the one that made the most street sense, the 446 Pack. 440 cubic inches of big block Mopar. 3 Holley 2-barrel carburetors on an Edelbrock-designed aluminum intake. 6 barrels of fuel and air on demand. Plymouth rated it at 390 horsepower. Same insurance game, same gross HP fiction. Real output estimated 425 to 435 on an honest dyno. Torque was where Mopar won every argument. 490 pound-feet at 3,200 RPM. That is a number that moves mountains. The six-pack setup was genius in its simplicity. Idle and cruise on the center carb only. Mash the throttle. All 3 open simultaneously. You got everyday drivability and full race fueling on demand. It was the best of both worlds, and Plymouth knew it. The Cuda wore its aggression on the outside too. That shaker hood scoop, bolted directly to the engine, moving with it, was theater and function in one piece. Motor Trend tested the 446 Pack Cuda in early 1970. Their number, 13.70 seconds in the quarter at 104 miles per hour. On paper, that put the Cuda dead even with the Ram Air IV GTO. Same ET, 2/10 faster trap speed. The magazines called it a draw. The gearheads called it for Mopar. Bigger engine, more torque, heavier hitter. But here's what the magazines didn't tell you. Testing conditions were not equal. The Cuda test car carried the optional 4-speed manual. Correct application. The GTO test car ran an automatic turbo hydromatic. The Ram Air IV, with a 4-speed close ratio Muncie and a 433 rear axle ratio, was a different animal entirely. Superstock magazine ran that exact configuration. Their result, 13.6 seconds, 107 miles per hour. 107 miles miles per hour through the traps. That is not a car that lost. Now let's talk about what matters at the strip. Weight. The 1970 GTO with the Ram Air IV weighed in at approximately 3,600 pounds. Substantial, but distributed well. The 446 Pack Cuda, 3,400 pounds. That is 246 pounds lighter. On a drag strip, 246 pounds is an eternity. Mopar built the E-body compact deliberately. They understood that if you can't add power, you take away mass. But the Ram Air IV offset that weight disadvantage with something the 446 Pack couldn't match: high RPM breathing. The round port heads on the Ram Air IV flowed more air at high RPM than almost anything Detroit made at that displacement. The 440 was a torque engine, maximum twist down low, pulling hard from idle. The Ram Air IV was an RPM engine. It kept building all the way to redline. Different philosophies, different power curves, same destination, the quarter-mile finish line. Here is where the debate gets real. The 446 Pack launched harder. Every tester agreed on that. That massive torque hit the rear tires with authority. In the 60-foot times, the Cuda had an edge. But then the Ram Air IV started breathing. Past 4,000 RPM, the gap began closing. By the time both cars hit 5,500 RPM in third gear, the Pontiac was making power the Mopar simply couldn't answer. The trap speed tells the real story. Trap speed is a function of peak power at the end of the run. 107 miles per hour for the GTO, 104 for the Cuda. 3 miles per hour through the traps translates to real horsepower advantage at the top end. The Ram Air IV was the stronger engine past mid-strip. Here is the truth nobody wanted to print in 1970. On equal footing, same gearing, same driver, same conditions, the Ram Air IV GTO won. Not by a country mile. We're talking tenths. This was not a blowout. It was a knife fight. And the Cuda had every right to be in that conversation. 440 cubic inches of Mopar muscle does not apologize to anyone. But this is a verdict channel, and the verdict is the Ram Air IV, properly geared, edges the 446 Pack Cuda by 1/10 to 2/10 in the quarter, consistently. Now here's what makes this debate richer. Production numbers. How many of each actually made it to the street? Pontiac built 3,797 Ram Air IV GTOs in 1970. Rare, genuinely rare for a mainstream muscle car. Plymouth delivered 15,626 446 Pack Cudas that year, 5 times the volume. Mopar was serious about getting this car into gearheads' hands. That production difference matters for collectors today. The Ram Air IV GTO's rarity drives its auction value, and that value has gone vertical. A numbers-matching 1970 GTO Ram Air IV in documented unrestored survivor condition has crossed $180,000 at auction in recent years. The 446 Pack Cuda, especially a numbers-matching coupe with documented build sheet, has touched $250,000 and beyond. The e-body market is ferocious. If you have a 446 Pack Cuda with a matching VIN-stamped engine, you have a retirement account in your garage. Now, legacy. What did these cars leave behind? The Ram Air IV GTO was the last truly wild GTO. After 1970, emissions regulations and insurance pressures strangled Pontiac's performance program. The 1971 GTO lost its Ram Air. Compression ratios dropped to accept lower-octane unleaded fuel. The Tiger was being declawed in real time. By 1974, the GTO nameplate was on a Chevy Vega-based coupe. The indignity was total. The 446 Pack Cuda held on slightly longer. 1971 still offered the 6-pack, detuned, lower compression, but alive. But 1971 was the last year for the 446 Pack option in the Cuda. Plymouth quietly dropped it for 1972. The era was over. What killed them was not the competition. No Camaro, no Mustang, no rival brand beat these cars where it mattered. Washington did. The insurance actuaries did. The Clean Air Act of 1970, the OPEC oil embargo of 1973. Those two events ended an era that no amount of horsepower could survive. The survivors that made it through, the documented, numbers-matching examples, are now the most sought-after American automobiles in the world. Because they represent a moment in American history when the engineers won, when the performance came first and the compromise came later. The Ram Air IV GTO was Pontiac's last great act. The 446 Pack Cuda was Mopar's purest expression of big block fury. Both deserve their place in the pantheon. But on the quarter mile, where it has always been settled, the Ram Air IV is the verdict. The stopwatch doesn't lie, the drag strip doesn't lie, and neither do we. If you believe the 446 Pack Cuda gets the nod, make your case in the comments. We read everyone. Subscribe to High Octane Legends. The next debate is already on the strip.